Hey there, Tad Hargrave from Marketing for Hippies, just sitting out on my front porch, and it's a really beautiful summer day, as you can see. And I was just on a call with my mentorship group, which is a program I do for 12 folks. We meet once a week, and something came up in the call that I wanted to share. There was one of the people had a website, and she said, I really want to. It was basically giving away a lot of free content. She said, I don't know, should I have an offer for coaching, but I kind of want it to be an agenda-free website. I like this idea of it's just free information with no agenda. And I said, you might want to give up this idea of anything being agenda-free. See if I can put this down here. I think it's a conceit that we're interested in as maybe hippies in business, of having our businesses be agenda free, but I think that's an illusion. It's just a question of what the agenda is, number one, and number two, if it's hidden. I was talking with a friend of mine on a ferry from Salt Spring to Victoria, and we were talking about this dynamic of people being creepy, and I said, I just got a message a few weeks before that from a young woman in the Edmonton community talking about older men in the community being creepy on younger women, and she said, the trouble is it's hard to pinpoint. You can't, it's hard to say where it happens, You can look at it from the outside and feel uncomfortable, but they didn't really do anything wrong. And of course this translates to business and sales. And so, a shout out to my friend Decker Kunov, who talked about how creepiness is really about veiled intention, meaning the intention is hidden. So the mechanics of creepiness are, I am going to, in this conversation, try to make something happen. So that could be romantically, that could be business-wise. But the whole time I'm trying to make this happen, I'm going to pretend that nothing is happening, which is why I feel so uncomfortable. An analogy I used for the first time ever in a call today was how, if you look at a duck, on the surface it's not moving, but underneath the water, its legs are just paddling so furiously. So this is kind of, not to cast aspersion on ducks, but this is the mechanics of it. On the surface everything seems fine, but under the surface there's all this work to try to make a certain agenda happen. So the first thing is, if the agenda is hidden, that's what makes it feel uncomfortable. It's funny, there's something very charming about a really sincere huckster. If somebody came up and was like, hey Dad, I got a bargain for you, give me 5 minutes and let me make my pitch, you're gonna love it, I'd probably just say, yeah, all right, you got 5 minutes, let's hear what you got, because it's so sincere, there's nothing hidden about it. On the other hand, if it is hidden and it seems so sincere on the surface, which would you rather? A huckster on the surface with a sincere heart and no hidden agenda, or sincere on the surface with a huckster beneath, which is what often happens. That's why things feel, creepy or uncomfortable or unsettling in some of these interactions. And that had me think about a dynamic that I wanted to talk about called predator or protector. And this isn't something I've spoken publicly much about, because I still feel like I'm thinking about it. But there are two kind of archetypes in this. One is predator, one's protector, and they are both brought into the world by the same thing, meaning they don't exist without the presence of this thing, meaning they are conjured somethings, and the thing that must be present for the predator to come into being, or the protector to come into being, is vulnerability or weakness. When the predator sees vulnerability, when they see the guard is asleep at the gates, they try to slip in. When the protector sees the guard asleep at the gates, they wake up the guard, or they stand guard until the guard's awake. The predator will take advantage of a situation, and the protector will not. And of course, we've all been both in our lives. We've all had times where there was vulnerability and we took advantage of it in people. And there have been times where we didn't, and we were the protectors. But I just want to submit that the major difference is the agenda. That the predator has an agenda to make something happen, and that is the most important thing. And the protector doesn't have the same agenda. But I talk about in my marketing workshops, there's agenda to get the sale, which is kind of the hidden agenda to get the sales? What is at the root of so many uncomfortable sales interactions? Uncomfortable for us as trying to sell something, but also uncomfortable for the person receiving it. But that agenda is uncomfortable and it's hidden. But there's another agenda, and the agenda is to get to the truth of, is this a fit or not? If you make that your agenda in the conversation, things feel pretty wonderful on both sides, because you're not trying to make something happen that doesn't want to happen. So in my sense, that's kind of where the protector comes from. The protector would never want someone to do something or be caught up in something that they didn't give their consent to. So the protector would check in and say, hey, this is kind of what's happening, or this is what I was thinking of, here's an option. What do you think? And isn't this the whole conversation about, sexual consent or in romance, that kind of consent? Making sure that people have, consent with knowledge, with foreknowledge, but also some of the etymologies with feeling. So yeah, I'm feeling this. This feels great. I've got this package. Would you be interested? So all that comes back to this woman's website, because I said, it's just an offer. It's just sharing. If at the bottom of a page of free content, you say, hey, if you'd like more, if this free content inspired you or was useful and you want more, here's some options. Now, if as soon as they click on that button, they're put into this very pushy, aggressive sales funnel where the agenda is to get them to buy, that's not going to feel good. But if when they click on the button, it takes them to a page that describes here's what it is, here's what it isn't, here's who it's for, here's who it's not for. If you get that, then it feels fine, which gets back to my whole sense of marketing being about filtering, not about persuading or pushing anyone. So there is this big question, at every moment, I think, in our human interactions of when there is vulnerability on the other side. Are we going to be a predator, or are we going to be a protector? Because it feels so wonderful. Let's just be real, that people have a hard time saying no. It's very difficult. And, even those of us who've been working on this for years in our personal growth, it's just so hard, to say no in the moment. So when somebody slows down and says, hey, how's this feeling for you? Is this feeling all right? A lot of times we look at sales as maybe to say it differently, most traditional sales training I've seen is all about increasing pressure. You make a pitch, somebody has an objection, then you try to overcome the objection. It's this constant forward motion. Whereas, what if we looked at sales as the primary skill of sales as being about identifying and diffusing pressure? And all praise to Ari Galper from unlockthegame.com, who was the first one who opened my mind to this idea. What if selling was about seeing where people feel pressure and diffusing it? And always checking in, always kind of getting that consent again. It's like, hey, I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm not trying to push you. I'm just trying to see if this is a fit. And if it's not, I'm happy to refer you to somebody else, or, and if I can't, well, just bless and release, and it's fine. So maybe to say this all differently, if we're coming from a hidden agenda to get the sale, or to get anyone else to do anything, or to make anything happen with anyone else, we're probably going to be a predator. We're probably going to be, whenever there's a vulnerable moment, we're going to move forward, we're going to push. And if we're in a place of being a protector, which I'm not saying these are the only two archetypes in the world, but just, to say something about something, if we're in a place of protector, we're also going to be looking out for their best interest. We're going to say, hey, I wouldn't want you to do this if it wasn't right for you. If we see that they're feeling pressured, we kind of slow down and we stop, and boy, nothing builds trust like that. If you're talking to a potential client and they've been feeling a pressure to do it for all the reasons, maybe just because of the setup of the interaction, you're selling something, they're buying something, there's an inherent pressure in the air in that, or maybe because they just have a hard time selling no. If you're the one to say, hey, you know what, you seem to be feeling uncomfortable. Yeah, does this feel right, or let's just check in. If you stand up for them and their own boundaries when they can't, you'd be amazed how much people open up, and then you're having an honest conversation. It shifts it from being a pitch to just a human conversation, which is the thing that we really want, because that's the thing that's actually going to find us clients that are really a fit, who will stick around for a long, long time, versus people maybe we pressure in once and then they leave and tell people never to talk to us again. So I just invite everyone to drop the idea of having no agenda. But paying attention, number one, is whatever agenda I have, is that open or is it hidden? But number two, to explore this agenda of going forward the truth. Is it a fit? Have that be agenda to get to the truth of that question. Is this a fit? I think you'll find if you do, you'll be protecting both yourself and them, and you won't be preying on anyone, which I know is a fear. You know, none of us want to do that. None of us want to be pushy. None of us want to be the predator. So anyway, those are some thoughts about it. I'd love to read any of your comments below, or thoughts or reflections. And that's all. Take care.